Hey everybody, and welcome to another video of Green Square Talks Battlebots, the first one for this upcoming season. So, earlier today, Battlebots updated the website with the robots we're going to be seeing in the main competition for this season, the many fighters we're going to be seeing for the Battlebots 2022 Giant Nut, basically. So, yeah, so this video is basically most of it's basically go through each robot one by one, where I'll give some of my basic observations. If there's anything else I know, I'll share some of that stuff and make some predictions for them for this upcoming season. So, but the other thing is, because there's a second thing I'm doing in this, might wonder what that is. Basically, it's a subway thing. So basically, there's a long story behind that before I start talking about this. So what's going on is basically I have a bet I gotta fulfill is the basis of this whole thing. So uh yeah, and so basically last season, Sterling Brown, aka Qwerty of TCC, the Combat Collective, another Battlebots podcast up there on the internet. Last season he had a Subway bet, and if he had a Subway bet in case if Sub-Zero was to not make the playoffs from that season, and of course that didn't happen after Sub-Zero went winless, unfortunately, and so he had to he ate a full meal from Subway on camera for one of his other videos, and so but the idea is we didn't get to watch him eat a meatball marinara. He chickened out of eating that, which is unfortunate because that would have been the funniest thing ever to watch. But yeah, to be completely fair though, I do respect that at least he went along with the bet though. Like he didn't try to back out of it or anything like that. Like Civilian Arc, anytime he has some embarrassing loss in Robot Arena 2 or something like that. But which I yeah, you got the idea. But the idea is basically within the squad and myself, basically like throughout the entire squad, we've had a few arguments over robots we were hoping would get in and other people who think they would not get accepted. But Manta and I basically made a bet on Swamp Thing for this season. Basically, I was predicting they would get in because Rick Russ is a legend, and like he's had a good history of making robots with great potential to it, and Mantine said the opposite basically, and so we made a bet that whoever is wrong about that would have to eat a meatball marinara sub on camera and all that stuff. And as you can tell if I just scroll, Swamp Thing isn't on here, as you can see. So, but yeah, through talks with the team and all that stuff, yeah, they were not partaking in the main competition for this season. We won't see them at that, which is unfortunate because like I truly did want to see Swamp Thing like in the competition this year, just because like I felt it was a design that had some potential to it, and all that stuff, but yeah. So I have a meatball sub sandwich here and got some other side things too, which I'm gonna enjoy that stuff while talking about these robots. So let's go ahead and talk about the first one then. So we got our first one here. It's a new robot. It's a robot that I got the opportunity to talk to like on the Newcomers podcast. We got Banshee, which is a pneumatic styled flipper right there. Come up created by David Small, who was on Team Malice last year, and so yeah, Banshee, there's a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to in this robot. Like not just that it's a new flipper bot, and like a lot of the design I mean a lot of the design stuff that David Small mentioned at that podcast includes that it's like small, compact. I believe it's supposedly a little bit fast as well, but like the thing that made me excited for it is the fact that I think it does the Banshee scream whenever it like triggers the flipper or something like that. But there's a lot I'm looking forward to with Banshee, and I think it's a great robot to try out here. And I think this rookie has potential to do well. So as for how far I think it will go, my one big concern, along with the fact that it's a new robot, is that the competitive field is kind of like the meta is kind of against Banshee. Because, like, the judging criteria favors spinners a lot more. The arena definitely favors spinners a lot more. And, like, Banshee probably won't do a lot of damage, at least in the arena. Because, like, their big hope for doing damage is, like, that they launch an opponent up in the air, and then that rattles something loose internal-wise and causes them to have, like, weapon problems or drive issues or something like that. That's kind of like the big hope for Banshee, at least in this thing, and in order for them to, like, win even a judge's decision or something like that. So, my prediction as for Banshee, I think it is possible for them to make bracket, but I'm kind of leaning more towards I'm probably gonna say a 2-2 record because like it is confirmed Battlebots is doing 4 fights in the qualifiers for this season. And as for like the rule changes for like because like we heard about the judges' appeals, rules for unsticking, what they're doing for matchmaking this year, at least for the qualifiers. We'll talk about that in a future podcast, but I think I'm going to predict a 2-2 record. I could see them making bracket as a lower seed, but I think kind of like it's a preseason prediction. I'm probably going to say they make first round of the bracket, but I would love to see Banshee go further cuz like something that I've always wanted is to see a non-spinner hoist the giant nut, which we haven't seen since Bite Force did it in 2015 with the lifter version of it. But that's kind of my predictions for Banshee here. I hope Banshee does great because huge fan of the team, and great group and great robot right here. I think it could do great. Robot number 2, Beta. And so we haven't seen Beta since the 2020 season. But yeah, so powerful hammer Beta right back once again for another season here. And yeah, very glad to see Beta back because I've always been a big fan of that hammer bot, especially how well they were able to take it to Tombstone in 2016, which was in my opinion one of my favorite fights of the entire season. And glad to see Beta back for another season. But yeah, I haven't heard much about configurations that they have for this season because one of my big concerns for Beta is that they're still very vulnerable to vertical spinners, at least. Because I've heard John Reed is not the biggest fan of wedgelets, and so I don't know if maybe he changed that or if they have another vertical style configuration like what they had last season that they used, or last time that they used against Ribot and Lockjaw. So that's definitely my big concern for Beta taking on those vertical spinners right there, especially the ones that could seriously go for ground game and just toss them like that. And the other thing is like the amount of usage with that hammer could be concerning for me because yeah, I feel John Reed's probably going to try to avoid firing the hammer into a spinner as much as possible, and I feel like he's probably going to draw a spinner, probably at least twice in the qualifiers, probably more, because a huge chunk of this field are spinner bots, whether it's vertical, horizontal, or drum spinners, or anything like that. As for record-wise, ooh, I I think I'm gonna lean towards a 1-3 or a 2-2 record, depending on who Beta draws, because lots of those big concerns, because like the field this year is stacked with vertical spinners, whether it's a bar spinner or a drum spinner, and that's something that definitely concerns me and could hold Beta back if unless if John Rhea is on point with his driving, which is very possible because he is a great driver without a doubt, and definitely, if all that can be like accomplished, I think Beta could have a good season, could go on a deep run. But as of right now, I'm probably gonna predict a 1-3 or a 2-2, and I'm probably gonna predict outside the bracket. But I hope they prove me wrong because like I love Beta regardless. Like yeah, like no matter what I say, I don't hate any of the robots on the field because like if I build a heavyweight, I probably wouldn't win against any of these robots right here. Just because even though I do have a small amount of experience in robot combat, it's not as big compared to several of the builders here. So let's move on. Okay, so next up we got Big Dill. And as you can see, Big Dill looks a little different this year. So here we discovered Big Dill was going to be having a vertical spinner on there. And I think from what I've seen on social media, I believe Big Dill has a couple configurations for this upcoming season. Whether that involves like just using the lifter, just using the vertical spinner combination, I think. Just yeah, because like Big Dill's been slowly announcing some of that stuff on social media, and but yeah, as for Big Dill, I think a lot of that's just going to depend on how much damage can the new weapon do. Because I imagine they added the vertical spinner to kind of like kind of counter the meta a little bit, do a little bit of damage, similar to like what Blacksmith's objectives were from last season with the power hammer. And so record wise here, definitely definitely a robot to watch out for. This is a hard one to predict just because we haven't seen a spinning weapon on Big Dill. Because, like, the previous two seasons that this robot has been here, Big Dill's just been a lifter. This is the first time we've seen it with a spinner on it. And so, it really depends on the quality of damage. Because, like, it's possible it could rip right through an opponent. But on the other hand, it could be more like a nibbler and not do much damage at all. I hope it's the first one, because like I love Big Dill, including Emmanuel is an outstanding driver, and I have so much respect for him. And but I think I'm probably gonna predict a 1-3 record once again. I hope Big Dill does better than what we've seen in the previous few seasons, because I know it's got the potential, including the jokes are, even though lots of them are dad jokes. They're like it's definitely an amusing thing to have on the show, and I'm so glad to see Big Dill back in the main competition this season. Okay, next up, one of my favorite robots out there. We got Black Dragon, and that thing looks awesome with that paint job right there. Looks like yeah, a couple of their big team members seem to be back at least from the picture right there from back in their rookie season, and but yeah, Black Dragon's always been one of my favorites since 2018, and I've always predicted them to go far, and I'm going to predict them to go far once again here. I'm not sure about a lot of their design changes for this season, but one of the changes I'm hoping they improved for this season is like a little more reliability within their flame system if they brought a flamethrower once again this year, which I probably predict yes, but I haven't really heard anything from the team about that. And then I also hope with some of their front configurations that they could improve their ability to like win the ground game, because I felt that held them back a few times. Like it held them back in the rotator fight, nearly held them back in the Mad Catter fight, nearly held them back in the Claw Viper fight, and then held them back in the Hydra fight. Even though some of that was out of order, you kind of get my point right there. But yeah, those are a few changes I hope they made for this season. But regardless, though, the driving on Black Dragon has been great. Like, and it's helped them win a lot of their fights so far. Lots of their fancy driving tactics and Mono, because Mono's amazing, and the tiny sword that Mono is holding there is absolutely adorable, as well as the big sword off to the right that one of their team members is holding. But record wise, I think I'm going to predict a 3-1 from Black Dragon, because definitely I think they have the potential to do great. We've seen some pretty impressive damage from them in previous fight and a lot of their fights from last season, and I think they definitely have the potential to do that stuff again. As for bracket wise, I'm gonna predict top 8 from Black Dragon, and similar to previous similar to like 2020 where they made the final 4 that year. That's what I think I'm gonna go for with Black Dragon, but the field is stiff this year. It wouldn't surprise me if they go like further or a little bit less. Well, next robot. Okay, next robot, we got Blip. So, yeah, Aaron Hill back with Blip once again after its top 8 run last season and its rookie season. Blip is another robot I'm really looking forward to seeing once again this year because the flipper system it had definitely showed it had a lot of potential last season. And its ability to win the ground game, toss an opponent who knows how many feet in the air, and its durability was pretty impressive as well with how well it was able to take hits from spinner attacks. And then including the self-righting issue they had trouble with in the Hydra fight last season. Pretty much Aaron Hill showed directly on the podcast from that video that they figured out and solved that issue so that way they can cleanly self-right for this season if they were to get flipped over like what happened last season. And then yeah, I'm not sure about much more improvement wise because I'm sure there are a lot. Like there's probably a lot of stuff that I don't know of at least within that robot, but record wise, like I expect Blip is probably going to have a hefty schedule this season after they made the top 8 last season. I think I'm going to predict a 3-1 from them as well. Just cuz like several of the big ground game verts, such as like Endgame or Copperhead, I definitely could see Blip drawing one or both of those robots this season, and like I feel it'd be a great fight either way because I feel it'd be great in back and forth. But several of those ground game verts, like the 2 examples I named, could give Blip some serious trouble if Blip is not careful. But I hope we get to see some success from Blip because one of the other things I've always wanted, which I think I mentioned this when we got to Banshee, is that I'd love to see a non-spinner hoist a giant nut. And I feel like out of all the non-spinners there, Blip is one of the robots that I feel has the most potential to do it. And yeah, you kind of get the idea. So yeah, anyway, I'd say let's go ahead and move on to another robot. Okay, so next robot, Bloodsport. And fun fact, my name is on the bottom of that robot. At least my YouTube username is. So shout out to Bloodsport for that. So yeah, Bloodsport. So definitely you're probably looking at a lot of their design changes at least. He's like one of the smaller ones being the wedgelets right there. Definitely like they're a bit more durable is what they're going for. Fall off, have a little bit of a harder time falling off. But the most notable one is that they move their weapon system up to the top, similar to what Ice Wave does, where Ice Wave has its drive system in the bottom and then the weapon system in the top. So one of my concerns will always be for Bloodsport, at least ever since seeing that, is how well that robot can take overhead attacks if they were to like take on Scorpios for round 3 or take on Sawblades, Beta. How well could that weapon system right there take an overhead attack? That's my big concern, at least, because like I don't have many concerns about their ability to do damage or their ability to self-right, because we've seen a lot of success within that in the past, even if there were some ups and downs along the way. But but yeah, the team did tell me when I mentioned that to them in one of their Instagram posts, I believe it was, that they do have an armor configuration to protect that bit from overhead attacks right there, and so we'll have to see that in action first. I hope it works if they were to get an overhead spinner opponent or something like that could damage that component right there, because that could be a very easy way to kill the weapon early. But I see the idea behind it because I believe what they're kind of going for is the fact that they've had heating problems. Like last season, they went to a whole different spin. they went to a spinner from the previous season after the Whiplash fight because they had heating issues once again, similar to what they had in 2020. But regardless, Bloodsport's a robot I'm looking forward to for this upcoming season, seeing how well they do. And that's not because like in the green square is on the bottom of the robot right there in text. But yeah, record wise, I am concerned about how well Bloodsport can take it to some of the bigger names, the vertical spinners this year. I'm probably gonna go 2-2 actually. But I think Bloodsport definitely has experience and will perform well enough to make bracket. Where I'll probably predict either top 32 or top 16. But I hope we get to see a big run from Bloodsport anyway, because love the Bloodsport team. They're a great group and great robot as well. And I hope we'll get to see a lot of success from Bloodsport. Next up, Captain Shredderator. Yeah, and so Captain Shredderator, one of the few robots now who has been in every single season ever since Battlebots was revived back in 2015. And so yeah, Captain Shredderator started to move in the right direction, I feel, ever since like the disaster they kind of had in 2019. Because like in 2020 they started to show some potential with like a victory or a couple good losses right in there in 2020. Then last season kind of similar type thing, but then add the win over Tombstone, which is huge. And so what's really going to come down to is Shredderator, because like it's definitely got the potential to do damage at least, and like deal with several different types of opponents. Because like we've seen how well it was able to handle horizontals holds pretty well for the most part. Like Tombstone, where they got one, and Gigabyte, where they were winning quite a few of the weapon on weapon exchanges at first for that one. But it's going to depend on reliability for Captain Shredderator, I feel, because like they've had issues with like internals dying out on them, having signal issues or something like that. Some of those issues were popping up again last season, and if something like that happens again, it definitely could hold back Captain Shredderator once again, which I don't want it to, because like I want to see that robot go on a deep run, at least, and I think it definitely has the potential to do so. Because like whenever that spinner is fully functional and the drive is fully functional, that thing wrecks everything in its path, and definitely is one to watch out for if they have everything in perfect sync and check for this season. Okay, next up, Claw Viper. This is another robot I'm really looking forward to because, like, I'm also participating in two fantasy tournaments this season. The first one being King of Draft, run by Sterling Brown of the Combat Collective, as well as Pori started his own Dippy Egg draft on his Discord server, and on the Dippy Egg draft, Claw Viper is on my team for that one. So I gotta have high hopes for Claw Viper. But yeah, I was very impressed with how Claw Viper performed this season, even if it didn't go as far as a lot of us hoped to, because like that lifter, well, and grappler had insane amount of power to it. Watching it suplex robots like Pardon My French and Black Dragon and all that stuff was absolutely incredible to see. Yeah, and so the problem they had last season, at least, I hope they hopefully improved for this season, is that they were a bit delicate, at least, and that's what I felt kind of held them back, especially in like the Bloodsport and Black Dragon fights from the previous season. But they still put up a heck of a fight against both those robots. So prediction wise, I am still concerned about how well they can handle like a lot of the big meta for this season, like lots of the vertical spinners and the drum spinners. And so I'm gonna predict 2-2, but I'm predicting Claw Viper makes bracket this season, and that is not because I have Claw Viper on a fantasy team right now, because like Claw Viper did show quite a few improvements, and basically it definitely was on like the right path after last season, and I think if they continue improving the robot, because like Kevin's a great driver, Claw Viper is an absolute speed machine right there. Claw Viper definitely has the potential to do well, I feel, and I would I I'm gonna make those takes on Claw Viper for this season. So now here is a big name right here, Cobalt. And what's most notable about Cobalt like isn't the actual robot. I feel it's the fact that Dave Molds and Sam Smith are both back for this upcoming season. Basically, those two shipped off the robot to and sold the robot to John Mladek for last season. Like after they were going to take a break from combat robotics to like start families, I believe was the thing they were going on. But now John mentioned that he was gonna invite both of them to the team for this upcoming season, and here they are. They are part of the team for this upcoming season. Great to see them both back. And so as for Cobalt, definitely the spinner has a little bit of a different look to it, but I suspect that it's probably got the same destructive tech to it that what we've seen out of the past in the past few seasons out of it, and it's like definitely one of the biggest weaknesses for Cobalt, like, isn't like the self-writing thing. Because I felt they fixed that pretty well after the Fusion fight. Because they announced, yeah, because John Mladek was talking about on my podcast, like, what they did to be able to fix that problem for their future fights. And so, yeah, I'm not worried about that. It's like basically the biggest example would use Tantrum in this one. Tantrum won that fight by bending up the forks so that way Cobalt would have a harder time scooping up an opponent and taking them right into that weapon right there. That's the big weakness in Cobalt basically, cuz like it doesn't rely on reach at all. It relies on them being able to get underneath the opponent and lift them up into that weapon right there so that way it can dig right in there and do a tremendous amount of damage like what we've seen the past two seasons. The past two seasons it was a part of. Sorry about that. So as for prediction wise, I think I'm actually gonna go 2-2 with this one, but I'd love to see a 3-1 record. Heard though, which I could also see, depends on the driving. Whether I'm not sure if it's John Mladek or Dave Molds who's going to be driving here. Uh, yeah, I think John Maladnik's the driver, but it could be Dave Molds as well. I'm not 100% certain who the driver is for that group, at least for that one. But they got good drivers either way, whether it's those two. I feel so. Sadly, we won't be seeing Matt Maxim from the sounds of it. It sounds like last season was him and Wendy's last season because like it was great getting to see them both back and getting to see Matt back at behind the wheel and so bracket wise, I think I'm gonna predict a top 16 run from Cobalt because Cobalt's definitely still the destructive spinner we've always known it to be, and definitely if their driving's on point and they're scooping up opponents, that robot's gonna succeed and is still gonna remain one of the most terrifying spinners in all of Battlebots. Let's move on. Okay, so Copperhead. So yeah, once again, changing of the guard, similar to what we had last season, because last season Zach left before that season, and Robert and Kimberly Cowan were in charge. This time it's Luke Quinn, and who's going to be in charge of Copperhead after Robert announced after the last fight recap from last season that he wasn't going to be on the team for this season. So yeah, I'm not concerned about like Copperhead's performance exactly, because like if you're unaware of this, Luke Quinn was actually driving for half the fights that Copperhead had last season, like the Lockjaw and the Fusion fight, and he's definitely shown his ability as a great driver in Battlebots, and definitely like I suspect he's probably gonna be the driver for Copperhead at least this season, kind of like based off of a lot of that, but my point being he's done a great job like driving Copperhead and those fights from that season and I like my point being that I don't think it's going to lower the standards for Copperhead and their performance levels. So, prediction wise, I'm gonna go 3-1, maybe 4-0 with this robot, because like this robot is one of the big names for being able to win the ground game right there. Because like almost every war they've had in terms of winning the ground game, Copperhead's been the victor of that. Like several opponents have really struggled to get underneath that robot in order to try to scoop it up and like land the knockout punch that they're so well known for. Copperhead's great at avoiding that right now, but including the fact that they have a powerful and devastating drum spinner right there, and the fact that it's so small and compact. So, and then bracket wise, I'm gonna predict a top 8 run from Copperhead, honestly, because even though I'm probably gonna give more than 8 robots a top 8 run, like Copperhead, I feel has serious potential to accomplish that, and with the driving and with the power of that drum spinner, they definitely could accomplish that task. Moving on. Okay, Death Roll. First of all, so glad to see Death Roll back for this upcoming season after we weren't able to see them the past few seasons due to COVID restrictions. So glad to see that Reign of Terror back once again. So Death Roll, lovely paint job right there and all of that stuff. And other than that, a lot of it seems the same. So I expect there's probably more devastating weapon power behind that robot and even more reliability and durability, like what we've seen out of it in 2020. So yeah, a lot of my concerns for it is mostly that I think they're going for reach once again, like what they've done last season, rather than going for the fort game, which could hold them back, but that durability could help them because like a lot of their fights they won, there were quite a few fights that they won by outlasting their opponent. Like the end game, for example, is the big end game is the big example. It nearly happened with Witch Doctor, right there, because like Witch Doctor started having issues at the end of that fight, while Death Roll, the weapon wasn't working, but the drive is still working perfectly. So yeah, like I feel that's probably not much of a concern because Death Roll has done great. Like, just know their Final Four run in 2019, which is the last time they were there. Or, for example, just the fact that they were able to win that like while they go for the reach games. So yeah, that's kind of my point right there. Death Roll, I'm gonna predict 3-1, and I'm gonna go top 16 for this season. But would love to see them go further, or as well, because like would love to see a non-ground game robot. Unless if they do have ground game for this season, because I'm not sure if they have forks or something like that. I didn't see it live this year. I hope to in the future though. And you never know, they might have configurations like that, because like Witch Doctor did bring forks and use them in the glitch fight, but then all their other fights they went for reach. So yeah, you kind of get my point right there, and I think I'm gonna make those predictions for Death Roll for this upcoming season. Okay, Doom. And so Doom is an interesting one because from what I know, I'm pretty sure they are not in the main competition for this upcoming season because I heard they were having issues with safety and were not able to get the robot ready in time to be able to partake in the main competition. But I hear that, but then I did he, but then I'm pretty sure they are part. I'm pretty sure they were able to get the robot ready in time to partake in exhibition stuff. Like if there's another Golden Bolt tournament or something like that. But you kind of get the idea. So yeah, Doom, another overhead attacker, right there. Similar, looks very similar to Beta, but then it's an overhead spinner rather than a hammer. And I think they have some fork configurations for it. And but yeah, sadly, I don't know what to predict exactly for Doom, just because like I'm pretty sure they're not in the main competition from what I know and have heard about, and from what I've heard on social media. But yeah, there's not really much I can predict just because we also don't know what's happening exhibition wise. Because like, is it just a Golden Bolt tournament like what we've seen in previous season? But yeah, I definitely have concerns for yeah, like it's a new build, it's a new design. Like, who knows what could go wrong with it? potentially, but I hope Doom, whatever it partakes in, because I predict they did get fights somewhere. Here, I hope there's a lot of success with them, and I'm probably not going to make many predictions from there based on what I have heard. Okay, the other robot with Doom in it, we got Doomba, and which is, in my opinion, like the new kind of like the next Rusty, basically, because that thing looks adorable right there. Basically, I believe it was inspired based off of like lighter a Roomba that was turned into a combat robot in a lighter weight class, basically. But yeah, chainsaw up top, flamethrower, I believe, and then undercutter, which I believe if I recall right, it's the same undercutter design that Smee has with this one. So prediction wise for this robot, I love the design of Doomba. I love the look of it, but I don't think it's gonna do great though. Unfortunately, I'm going to predict probably either a 1-3 or a 0-4 record. Because like, there's not a lot of robots I feel that they're going to be able to beat at least. Because like, I'm not sure how much damage that robot's going to be able to cause at least to cause chaos. But regardless, though, it looks phenomenal right there, and like, I want to be proven wrong though. Don't get me wrong on that. But like, I feel most robots like that thing's gonna struggle against that stuff, and like, yeah. Like once again, I want to see Doomba do. I want to see Doomba do well. Like from preseason predictions and how stacked the field is, I'm leaning against that. But I hope I get proven wrong though. Regardless, once again. Next robot, Double Tap. Okay, so Double Tap bring in a spinner that we haven't really seen at Battlebots yet. So if you've seen Robot Wars and you've seen like Expulsion is the big example of this. How Expulsion Spinner worked because Double Tap's got the same tech with that. It's like the teeth start out inwards, but then when the weapon starts spinning up, when it gets to full speed, the teeth will start moving outwards basically, and then they'll be able to bite into their opponent whenever it hits like that. That I believe is a lot of the tech that Double Tap has in that spinner. A lot of the fact that I believe it's articulated like Ghost Raptor was from at least what I've heard and from kind of some of the looks of this. So it'll be very interesting to see this robot in the field and see how well it does. I heard it was also having issues with safety, but I have heard it did pass all the inspections and for sure, and it will be in the main competition from what I have heard. So prediction wise, this is another robot that I'm a little more nervous about because, for one, I don't know whether it can self-right or not if it gets flipped. And there are so many robots in the field that could very easily flip that thing if Double Tap is not careful right there. And so that's why I'm probably gonna predict 1-3 this time because like there are several because like don't get me wrong, like here, but I don't feel there are a lot of robots that I feel it would have like a disadvantage against, at least in the competition, and I think that could hold Double Tap back if Double Tap is like not careful right there. So that's my guess for Double Tap. At least. I'm probably gonna predict they will not make bracket, but I hope I'm wrong about that. I'd love to be wrong about that, and definitely so. Uh, Regardless, though, I'm looking forward to seeing Double Tap in the battle box. Okay, next up, another rookie bot, Emulsifier. This is another rookie bot I'm looking forward to, including they are on my draft squad for the Dippy Egg draft, and Emulsifier is one I'm really looking forward to this season. If there's any rookie bot that I chose to make that I was going to predict to make a deep run, it would be this robot. And so this robot was made by the same team by Bots FC, aka Shatter, and who's come with two robots for this season. One of them being that, And Emulsifier has a big history in other competitions because this robot's a lighter weight competitor at competitions like Norwalk and stuff like that. It has a huge history of smashing apart opponents and winning competitions. But yeah, and then the other notable thing is that it's got treads, which definitely should be able to give them a lot of push power. And then that wedge should offer some pretty good protection, at least from the front, right there, protecting that opponent from like spinner attacks that will try to destroy those treads, basically. So as for Emulsifier, I'm going to predict 3-1. I'm going to predict a top 8 run this season from Emulsifier, and definitely should be great to see. I'm looking forward to seeing what that robot can do. Oh, not 100% sure if it can self-right, but I feel it's probably going to be something through the weapon, at least, because I believe it could self-right through its own spinner capabilities, at least in like lighter competitions, and I feel that's probably going to be the same way, at least for this season. So yeah, very much looking forward to seeing Emulsifier in action. I got a lot of confidence that that thing could do some serious smashing in the battle box. Okay, big name right here. So Endgame once again back with that terrifying vertical spinner, hoping to win their second giant nut or maybe their second golden bolt if Battlebots is bringing back the golden bolt tournament once again. So yeah, Endgame always been one of the biggest names I feel the past few seasons, and like a ferocious vertical spinner, tremendous ground game, and Jack Barker's an outstanding driver right there. Like I don't really notice a lot of design changes in there, at least other than like the paint scheme on top, but I suspect there are probably a lot of changes internal wise to make that robot like even better than it was ever since it won the Giant Nut 2 seasons ago and won the Golden Bolt last season. So as for Endgame, I'm predicting 4-0 from Endgame, and I'm gonna predict a top 16, maybe top 8 run from Endgame. Realize I forgot to do that with Emulsifier. Emulsifier, I'm predicting 3-1. I'm predicting top 8 from them actually. But okay, back to Endgame. But yeah, those are some of my guesses for Endgame, and I got some confidence that Endgame's gonna have another great season because Endgame proved in the Golden Bolt bracket that they are still one of the biggest names in the competition, and definitely one to continue to watch out for. All right, free shipping once again, and Gary Jin back for another season, and you might notice free shipping looks a little different this season. So I heard they also kind of went with the Swiss Army route at least, because I believe they still have the lifter, but it's notable that they have a drum spinner this season, or a tiny vertical spinner, I believe. Not sure which, or both, maybe. So free shipping definitely coming with the potential to do damage route once again, and I would suspect they almost certainly have the flamethrowers. Looks like maybe two of them. Looking at that picture right there, because I see we got one on the left and one on the right side, right? At least on at the top area. So there might be two flamethrowers this season. Regardless, though, free shipping's different this year, and hopefully we'll get to see a little bit of a better performance from them. But regardless, though, I think with the driving of Gary Jin and definitely the upgrades free shipping seems to have made, I think free shipping could do well. I am concerned about those exposed wheels, though, because like Tombstone made mincemeat of those when they took on free shipping last season, and I'm sure other robots could do the same exact thing if they were to draw free shipping for this upcoming season. So record wise, I'm gonna go 2-2 from free shipping this year because I suspect they're probably gonna get at least 2 to 3 big names this year, maybe more. So yeah, there's a lot to watch out for with that robot. Not sure if I'd predict they'd make bracket, but like I think free shipping's overdue to make bracket at least. I want to see free shipping make bracket as I do with several other robots, and we'll go with that. Okay, next up, Fusion. And so this one was actually a little bit hidden, at least if you're a Battlebots supporter watching this thing. Fusion, basically, Waiachis didn't reveal any of the robots they were going to be bringing. Basically, originally it was looking like, were the Waiachis not going to partake this season? But we did figure out a little bit ago that they did bring Fusion and Hydra to Battlebots this season. Yeah, and so looking forward to seeing Fusion back once again, because, like, while it did definitely have issues in their last two qualifying matches from last season, the Cobalt fight they showed tremendous potential in. And if Fusion can work like what it did in the Cobalt fight, Fusion could go on a serious run. So prediction wise, it's going to depend on how Fusion works this season. Because, like, if they have problems with exploding once again, basically, I don't think Fusion's going to do great this season. Like, I'd probably go 1-3. But if the weapons work and all that stuff, like, if they perform like how they did in the Cobalt fight, Fusion could go 3-1 and maybe go deep run. I'm just going to take the average between those. I'm going to predict 2-2 for Fusion for this season. I think I'll maybe predict top 32 this season, but not sure exactly. Not sure what to make of Fusion, because Fusion's always a mystery, just because it's always had consistency issues with it, and definitely, regardless, it'll be great to see it. It'll be great to see that Waiachi machine back for another season. All right, Gigabyte. Okay, so Gigabyte back for another season once again after making the top 32 last season and then losing their bounty final to Hypershock. But this really bad spinner, bad as in like devastating spinner, basically. Like Gigabyte's a great robot. Like, don't get me wrong about that. Do not take it that way. But Gigabyte. I have heard a lot of their design changes have been into like more damage within that full body spinner, like being able to rip into their opponents more. So yeah, as for prediction wise, I do still worry about how well Gigabyte will fare against the rest of the competition, because like definitely we discovered when the upper deck was introduced last season that the arena now doesn't favor horizontal spinners even more than it has in the past, basically. Because, like, basically, very easy for a horizontal spinner to get trapped into the short corner and not be able to spin up. So, basically, lots of those arena things definitely could hold Gigabyte back if Gigabyte is not careful, and it could be a repeat of, like, the uppercut fight, basically, from last season. So, record-wise, I really want to predict better, but I think I'm going to have to predict 2-2. I think Gigabyte will make bracket, though, because Gigabyte's been able to put up really impressive fights against so many big names in previous seasons, and I suspect they'll do the same thing this year. So, yeah, I'm going to predict 2-2. I think they'll make bracket. Uh, Maybe top 16, but I'm probably leaning more towards top 32, unfortunately. But yeah, once again, great to see Gigabyte back. So next up, Glitch. Yeah, and so Glitch I felt they had a phenomenal season last year. Basically, came in as a rookie, went undefeated in the qualifiers. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get ready fast enough to be able to partake in the bracket. But then we saw them in the Golden Bolt tourney where they just plowed through every one of their opponents in their bracket, and then lost to Witch Doctor in the first round of the Golden Bolt bracket. So yeah, so as for Glitch, I hope they made the robot a little more manageable, because I heard there were a lot of delays, at least during the qualifying round. And like some of them because they couldn't get ready, but then many others that didn't have to do with Glitch. I'm not saying that Glitch like was delaying the whole season basically by themselves. There were so many other issues, because I heard there were many other teams that were having issues with internals blowing up and stuff like that. So Yeah, as for Glitch though, definitely Glitch is going to get more big names once again this season. Like what they got last, definitely probably a harder schedule than what they got last season, I feel. Because once, for one, the field is more stacked. And then the second thing being, they had an outstanding season last year, and they're going to be known as one of the big names. So, as for Glitch, I think I'm going to go 3-1 from Glitch. I think they'll make top 16 this season, but who knows? We'll find out. So, looking forward to seeing Glitch back once again in that terrifying egg beater. Next robot, Gruff. So, yeah, Gruff coming off of a couple rough seasons, I feel, uh, with that lifter right there and the two flamethrowers. Definitely Gruff. While I do feel it is a robot to watch out for, and like it's still terrifying because like the flamethrowers have definitely done some damage to their opponents. Because like my big example of that being the fight with Kraken after they absolutely torched that thing at the end of that fight. So yeah. So as for Gruff, I do worry a lot about how well it will fare against like the big meta because that's kind of like that's the big issue that I feel holds Gruff back at least because like the spinner meta I feel is the spinner meta definitely holds them back a little bit. Like even ever since the 2019 season, I feel, which was when they debuted, definitely they've been struggling taking on lots of these big spinners and being able to win fights against lots of them. I hope we get to see a new and improved Gruff, and I hope we get to see a much stronger season from them. But for now I'm probably gonna predict a 1-3 record from Gruff. I hope they do better for this season than what we've seen, than what we saw last season. But yeah, like hopefully they'll be able to better deal with spinners, and hopefully we'll get to see a lot more usage out of the flamethrower. Even though that's not their fault, that's not their fault at all. Because like part of the thing is that they can't use the flamethrowers like when they're close to the arena rails, just because like the flamethrower would melt the Lexan glass basically. So yeah, I do have some concerns for Gruff, but I hope Gruff does a lot better for this season. So I have high hope. I do have high hopes for them because I am a big fan of Gruff. So let's move on to another one. All right, Hijinks. So Hijinks, part of my King of Draft team for this season. They're back with that undercutter her once again, and yeah, not a lot of design changes looks wise, but I feel there are a lot of design changes internal wise, and they probably have multiple blades this season that are meant for specific opponents, like what they were introducing last season. So hopefully hijinks things like I hear Jen is going to have a controller this season, from what I've heard because I think they adjusted like their drive and weapon system to make it a little more manageable, make it a little more reliable, basically. Because like while their weapon was working great for the most part, because probably the big thing with the weapon is mostly the spin up time. I feel, but making their drive a little more reliable, especially when they get flipped over, because one of the big weaknesses I've noticed within hijinks is they run great right side up, and then the tail's incredibly low to the ground, and the spinner's got quite a lot of power to it. But when they get flipped over, they tend like we saw a lot of crab walking and after the Kraken fight when they got flipped over there. So yeah, so that there's a lot to watch with hijinks, but I got some high hopes for hijinks because I'm predicting 3-1 from hijinks for this upcoming season, including I'm gonna predict they make top 16 this year. So I'm predicting a deeper run than what we've seen in prior seasons within that robot. But there's a lot to count on with that right there. Just like Orion's always done a great job driving hijinks and utilizing a lot of its abilities with like the powerful horizontal spinner, the incredibly low to the ground tail that's held a lot of their opponents back. So yeah, there you go. And yeah, looking forward to seeing hijinks back. Hijinks is one of my favorite robots out of the bunch here, and so hopefully we'll see great stuff from hijinks. Okay, next one. Horizon. Which, yeah, I got to talk with this team. They made an appearance on my Newcomers podcast where we got to talk about the robot, and I'm really looking forward to this one. So yeah, if you haven't watched the Newcomer podcast or heard much about this team, basically what makes this robot unique is like not only do those two horizontal spinners there spin, but the entire axle on the top spins as well. Basically, if you want to see how that works, basically they had a lighter weight robot named Skyline that participated in competitions like Norwalk. There are some videos out there. I'd recommend checking that out. See how that stuff works because it's pretty interesting. It'll be a great new piece of tech to see in the battle box as they look to swing all that around while their horizontal spinners are going and deliver a big bite into their opponent with the horizontal spinners. So yeah, I think it'll be a great piece of tech to see in the battle box for this upcoming season. But prediction wise, I am concerned. I don't think it's gonna do great though. Like it's going to depend on how much like damage it can cause to their opponents and how fast does that bar spin basically and what's the spin up time like because I feel how most opponents are probably going to take it to them is to box rush them, prevent the thing from spinning and maybe flip them over. While it does have self-riding capabilities with the Taco self-rider they got on top, and yes, it is the Taco. Oh, from what the team has said on the podcast, basically, was the idea behind it. Definitely, it's still something to watch out for, and yeah, I'm probably gonna predict 1-3 from Horizon. I'm probably gonna predict they don't make bracket, but I hope to be proven wrong because Horizon is a newcomer for this season that I'm looking forward to seeing in action and hope we'll get to see some great fights from it. Next up, Huge. And so Huge coming off of I felt a little bit of a down season. It's like they did have a dominant fight against Retrograde and an up and down victory over an up and down victory over Switchback, but they definitely had a hard time with multiple opponents like Riptide, Uppercut, and Deep Six right there. But it's great to see Huge back regardless. So yeah, I feel a lot of the improvements Huge probably made for this season was building up the base of that robot right there, because like they proved to be very vulnerable there from robots like Uppercut and Deep Six who have weapon heights. They're able to target that base area, but yeah. So I'm as for what I'm predicting from Huge, because like part of the thing is also that robots are figuring out how to fight Huge, because like lots of robots have some robots have figured out that the base is like a weak point, a Huge. Others figured out that maybe just go right for the weapon. Basically, that's what Riptide did to beat them. They just went weapon on weapon and try to land all the hits they can to knock Huge around, basically. And yeah, record wise, I think I'm gonna go. Uh, Geez, this is a hard one at least, because like it really depends on who they take on. Because there are some robots that have a huge disadvantage against them, no pun intended, right there. But I think what I'm going to go for with Huge is I think I'm going to go 3-1 with Huge. I think they'll make bracket. I'll go top 16, but it really depends on who they go up against. Because definitely horizontal spinners will remain a big weakness because it is possible for them to get through and break those wheels basically, like what we've seen in the past. But Huge will always be a big name to watch out for. So let's move on to Hydra. And so Hydra definitely comeback of the season last season. They went 1-2 and then had to go through the last chance fights basically, the last chance fight with Defender, and then made a final four run before losing before losing it and what could have been what was a controversial fight against Tantrum. Nope, I'm not going to share my opinions on who I think won that fight because I'm not interested in any of that debate because it's also not the point of this podcast basically. regardless, it's great to see Hydra back, and having Jake Ewart on the podcast twice last season was really fun. So as for Hydra, I hope they improved a lot of the drive abilities, because definitely that's what held them back in many of their fights. Oh well, really just their own reliability, because it was different things that held them back in multiple of those fights right there, multiple of the qualified matches as well as like the Black Dragon fight. So as for Hydra, I think I'm gonna predict 3-1 from Hydra, maybe 4-0, because like Jake Ewart has definitely made himself known as, I'd probably say, one of the best drivers in the entire sport right there, with how well he's been able to drive Hydra around. Because, like, his driving in the Black Dragon fight, especially, while being on one wheel for almost all the match, basically, because I heard he lost drive on one side very early in that match. How well he was able to still stay on Black Dragon, basically, like, keep controlling the match, just not let them get the upper hand right there, was phenomenal work right there from him. And if Hydra's working at 100%, like what it did in a couple, like as it did in a couple of its matches from last season, I think we could see a deep run from Hydra, but as of now, I'm probably going to predict top 16, but would love to see further, because I know they've been after another giant nut ever since Sanawayachi won it in the Comedy Central era. But I think it's possible, if it's working perfectly, we could see Hydra, because Hydra is another non-spinner. We could see Hydra take home the giant nut, and the villain of Battlebots, Jake Ewart, take home a giant nut. But as of right now, I'm gonna predict 3-1 in top 16, but would always love to see further, because yeah. Okay, next up, Hypershock. And so Hypershock, one of the most notable contenders I felt is from the Golden Bull tournament bracket area, basically. Had multiple good fights in the qualifying round of the main competition before dropping out to P1, and then they were so dominant, especially in their Golden Bolt bracket. Plowed through their first three opponents before absolutely destroying Gigabyte, went through Scorpios pretty easily, and then had a pretty back and forth showdown in that loss with Witch Doctor. So I think this one's going to depend on, can Hypershock keep up that success, basically. Because like if Hypershock can accomplish that task, I think Hypershock is going to have another great season this year. And definitely I would love to see another great season from Hypershock, but if Hypershock works as well as it did last season, I think it makes it far in the bracket easily. But Hypershock's always had consistency problems, and that's the thing that worries me most about Hypershock, because they've got great driving, they've got a great design, and got a great run going right there, great mojo going. So this is really tough. I'm probably gonna say 3-1 in top 16, similar to Hydra, but Hypershock and Hydra are both robots that I feel definitely have the potential to go very far in the tournament and maybe take home the giant nut. So pretty much as I've been going on about, there are so many robots this year that have the potential to go very far and take home the giant nut. So let's move on. Jackpot. Jackpot, one of my favorite robots out there, back once again with another with yeah, back again with another sweet and deadly looking design right there. So definitely the most notable thing is their self-righting system, which seems to be very similar to Mad Catter, where they use where they have combination of self-righter and forks within that system, and along with their big spinner right there. So prediction wise, Jackpot looks fierce once again this season. So I'm gonna predict 3-1 from Jackpot. I'm gonna predict top 8, maybe top 4 run this season. Cause yeah, I have Jackpot on multiple fantasy teams this year, and I got a lot of I got a lot of confidence in Jackpot, that Jackpot could do great once again this year. Cause yeah, The bottom of the budget's had so much success the previous few years. I'm predicting that once again this year, and yeah, you kind of get the idea. So, okay, Kraken. And Kraken, another robot where it looks pretty different. Yeah, and so basically, Kraken is now an overhead spinner once again. And I first want to say, though, I'm going to really miss the Crusher version of that robot, because, like, I said this in one of my Robot Arena 2 videos. It was basically on the new Battlebots pack, but it was so much fun watching Kraken dig those teeth like into an opponent's weapon. Like especially Huge and Sawblades were the two funniest ones. Although and then we've seen the same thing against like Black Dragon, Witch Doctor, Rotator. I think Hijinks as well, but yeah, several other robots. And so, yeah, I got a lot of confidence in the durability of Kraken, at least, especially the drive system. But I am concerned about how well they can take an overhead attack. Because, like, the top area around the spinner doesn't look very well protected, at least. And that's something that does worry me a little bit with the new Kraken. But prove me wrong though, for sure. But if Kraken can dish out lots of painful damage like what they've done in the past, right there, Kraken's definitely. I feel Kraken has the potential to do better than what it's done in any season so far. Because like we definitely saw it really premiere in 2020 when they went 1-2, getting a victory against Witch Doctor and two good losses against Black Dragon and Huge. To like something like this right there if 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 Kraken can keep up the durability it's got and be able to dish out some damage, I think Kraken will make bracket. So my prediction for Kraken is probably 2-2. I think right now just because of some of those overhead attack concerns that I've got, and yeah, and even like even from Eye's view right there, what's its self-writing abilities like? Is it the same as it was previous season? Because it doesn't look round on the back like what we saw with the Crutcher design. And so, unless they have like a self-writer there, or if I'm just looking at it incorrectly, and it is still able to self-write the way it has in past seasons, that's something still to watch out for, I believe. So, and then if they make bracket, I predict they'll make bracket, and I think I'm probably gonna say first round exit, but I hope they prove me wrong because I've always been a big fan of Kraken as well as many of these other robots. So let's move on. Oh. Lockjaw. Lockjaw looks a little different, including the fact that we see Spitfire right there, fire-breathing drone, as well as the little mini bot we saw last season. So yeah, the Sub-Zero team joining forces with Lockjaw for this season, and yeah, Lockjaw was definitely a robot that I mentioned with some concerns about like its ability to take on lots of the high tech robots from the last season, and definitely they made some pretty solid design changes, hope to match the meta, and like yeah, I think this will be interesting to see at least for this upcoming season. I think it'll make because like I feel if they didn't make some of these design changes, I feel it's possible we could just see a repeat of last season basically. So I'm glad Lockjaw made a lot of those changes to continue to be one of the big names and continue to be a really competitive design. So as for predictions for Lockjaw, yeah, I still do kind of worry a little bit just because of like lots of the concerns I had after last season. So I'm probably gonna go 2-2 once again, but I don't know what to expect from Lockjaw for this upcoming season. I'm probably gonna go 2-2. I think I'm gonna predict they make bracket. I'm probably gonna predict top 32 though, but who knows? Like I'm gonna be wrong on so much of this stuff just because the field is so stacked this year, and I think this is gonna be a great season. Next up, Lucky. And so Lucky back once again after they made their return last season with with their great flipperbot as well as a new driver, and their new driver did great last year. Even though Lucky bowed out in the first round of both the bracket for the main competition as well as the first round of their bracket in the Golden Bolt tourney, Lucky definitely was moving in the right direction, I felt. So, yeah, prediction wise for Lucky, not sure what there are for design changes, but I'm probably gonna go uh, just because of the fact that I think they're going to struggle against a lot of the ground game competitors for this season. I think I'm going to predict 1-3 from Lucky, unfortunately. But I want to see Lucky do better and be a shining star, like what they looked like they could be in a future season. Because like I said, Lucky I felt did great last season and are moving in the right direction after a few seasons that just didn't go their way. So yeah, I'm probably gonna predict 1-3. I'm probably gonna predict they're not going to make bracket, but prove me wrong, of course. First, I want every competitor to prove me wrong and do better than what I'm predicting right there. So please do, because I'm always up for that. It's one of the reasons why I absolutely love watching and talking about this sport. So let's move on. Mad Catter. And so Mad Catter back with that terrifying vertical spinner and all that stuff. Mad Catter, I love that paint job once again, similar to some of the other robots here. That thing looks awesome, and the paint job looks scary on it, which I'm guessing is something that they're kind of going for, at least. So, yeah, definitely with Calvin Eba behind the wheel, which I'm guessing he's going to be behind the wheel once again, seeing he is in that picture right there. Mad Catter is going to be a force to be reckoned with once again, I feel. So, yeah, as long as their drive is working and their weapon is working, which it has been the past few seasons, I think Matt Catter could do great this year. So for Matt Catter, I'm going to predict 3-1 record for them. I'm not sure whether I want to go top 32, top 16, or top 8. Like, really depends on who Matt Catter draws. I think I'm just going to go right in the middle of that, go top 16. But who knows what could happen. So, great stuff, and looking forward to seeing Martin Mason once again. Malice. Malice, another one of my favorite robots out there, and a few design changes right there for Malice. So yeah, Malice has announced the one thing that's noticeable, the forks right there. Malice has a bunch of ground game forks right there that I think should be an interesting test, and I hope we get to see them fight like a vertical spinner or a flipper to where they'll use those, because I'm interested to see how it will work out for Malice at least. And the other design change that I know of is like John Mladnick provided them a speed controller type that should be able to help handle their weapon basically, because that was one of the issues they had last season. Because they had speed controllers that could provide their weapon like the speed needed, but then they weren't that reliable basically. And that is what held them back in quite a few of those fights where we saw their weapon go down. But yeah, so as for Malice, I got this is not just because Malice is one of my favorite robots, but I got confidence that Malice is going to go on a deep run this season. I think I'm going to predict 3-1 for Malice in the qualifiers. I'm going to go top 8 for Malice for this upcoming season, and looking forward to seeing it once again and seeing how well it will perform in this upcoming season with a lot of those design changes that we've seen. All right, Mammoth. Mammoth back for another season once again with that interesting design right there and that lifter. So, yeah, as for Mammoth, not sure about a lot of the design changes, but I suspect there's a lot more than what meets the eye with several of these robots once again. Like lots of stuff that we don't know about at least. So, yeah, as for Mammoth, yeah, I'm definitely worried about how well they will fare against the field this year, with the field being as stacked as it is. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to predict 1-3 with Mammoth. I don't think they're going to make bracket, but would love to be wrong about that because, I know Mammoth is Blaze's favorite robot, and we'll almost certainly see Blaze on the channel for podcasts this season. And regardless, looking forward to seeing some entertaining battles from Mammoth once again, as we've gotten in all the past in every season they've partaken in. So, All right, let's move on. Minotaur. Ever since Minotaur participated in 2016, they've been one of my favorite robots of all time. And every season they participated in, they've been my prediction to win it all. Great to see Marco back once again after he took last season off and all that stuff. So, yeah, as for Minotaur, once again, they are my pick to win the Giant Nut this year. Because, like, that drum spinner has been an absolute menace to almost everyone they fought so far, and including Witch Doctor, who they lost to, because like they were winning that fight at least up until they lost that wheel right there, where all things like collapsed from there, and why Witch Doctor won that fight basically. So yeah, I feel if Minotaur can keep the success up, because like they have had a few slow starts, like having some issues either with the drum spinner, their own reliability, or just taking it a brutal early loss early on, like Minotaur has been a ferocious competitor, and I think I'm gonna predict 3-1 for Minotaur because like who knows who they're gonna draw at least in the opener, but I think it's gonna be a tough one. Like the two robots on my mind that I think Minotaur. No, I'm gonna say three robots in mind that I think Minotaur could be drawing first. I could see them drawing the defending champ Tantrum, maybe going with the flipper Blip, or going Hypershock. I feel one of those three robots is going to be Minotaur's first fight this upcoming season. All three of those could be a very challenging opponent for Minotaur, but we'll find out whenever Battlebots releases the first fight card. So, yeah, great to see Minotaur back for another season, and they are my pick to win the nut, as I said. Monsoon. And so excited for this one. Monsoon, I've been a big fan of Monsoon ever since watching them absolutely kill it in 2018 with some really entertaining battles, and they've been seems like they've been wanting to bring the new Monsoon for this season ever since 2020, but then haven't been able to for either of them due to like COVID concerns or restrictions. So so glad to get to see this thing back. So if I remember right from some of the design changes, I believe they do have a configuration for horizontals this time because that was their big struggle in 2018 and 2019. And then as and then some more reliable internals because we did see some weapon problems in both 2018 and 2019. And then the big thing that's notable, well, which they showed a picture of this on social media, Monsoon is a lot smaller this year than it was in previous seasons. I think they're going with a more smaller and more compact robot this time around, which has its benefits. Because, like, I mean, it's what Tantrum and Copperhead do, and those two robots have had a lot of success, including one of them won the Giant Nut last year. So, yeah, really looking forward to this, including, yeah, Tim is back for this season, this time after 2019 partaking on Team Ragnarok for that one, and I've always enjoyed his craziness, and great to see Monsoon. As of right now, I'm gonna go 3-1 once again. I think like definitely. I think the rust from not being at Battlebots the past couple seasons could be a problem at first, but regardless, though, I think we got potential to see Monsoon do great once again, and I think we could see another deep run from Monsoon. So let's move on. Ominous, another newcomer I'm really looking forward to, and this one's interesting because, like, as you see, the wheel type is different. It's a lot more like Shatter, basically, Omni wheels, basically. So not sure exactly how the drive system works, but I'm really looking forward to seeing it, though. So, and then they got the powerful drum spinner right there, which should be able to cause some damage to their opponents. So, yeah, there are videos of Ominous out there from other competitions, so definitely check those out just to see like how the design works basically and all that fun stuff. So, as for Ominous, I do worry how they'll fare against this field, but like I'm always looking forward to watching it in action basically and to see how it does. So yeah, Ominous. I'm gonna go 2-2 from Ominous. I'm gonna lean towards they don't make bracket, but I hope I'm wrong about that though, because yeah, Ominous is another one of the newcomers for this season. I'm really looking forward to seeing in action. Okay, let's move on. Overhaul back for another season once again. We did get to see it win a fight in the end in that chair match against Big Dill, and we got to see it show a lot of potential in the Black Dragon fight. Getting the grab it did, getting the 2 grabs it was able to get in that one, and regardless, looking forward to seeing Overhaul back, including the fact that I heard they had, including the fact that I believe we learned from the Scorpios Builder blog they came with a sword for this season, making me wonder. We got to see a chair match last season. Are we gonna get to see a sword fight this season? Because like what comes to mind is Overhaul brought a sword this year. Scorpios brought the Overkill knife with them that they've been showing off in lots of their builder blogs. Could we maybe see a match like that? That would be so exciting to see, and I hope so. I hope we get something like that. But as for Overhaul, sadly, there are not a lot of robots that I think Overhaul would fare well against. Because like that was one of my big concerns for them coming into last season, and it's the same thing once again. Because like the meta just really does not favor Overhaul, at least for this. Because like I want Overhaul to do well. I want to see another deep run from Overhaul, like what we got in 2015. But I feel with a lot of meta here, I don't think it's going to fare well in Overhaul's favor, and I think that's going to hold them back. There's there's really not too many robots that I think they could really win against, so I think I'm going to lean towards 0 and 4 or 1 and 3, but I hope Overhaul proves me wrong and maybe makes bracket once again, because I'd love to see a bracket run from Overhaul once again, because Overhaul is truly a great robot. Next one, another robot that I'm so glad to see back. Quantum. Yeah, one of the most debuted in 2019, and that crusher was so terrifying. The amount of damage it was able to do to several of its opponents, and definitely is something to watch out for. I can't wait to see Quantum just absolutely sink its teeth into its opponent right there and dish out some huge damage. I'm going to call it right here. I would think they're going to take on either free shipping or Gruff with the intent of with the intent of Battlebots hoping Quantum will bite right through one of their fuel tanks and maybe cause an explosion. So as for prediction wise, yeah, once again, so glad to see Quantum back, but part of the problem that I have here is that Quantum, like similar to Overhaul, Quantum's design just doesn't fare well with the current meta of BattleBots, basically. Because like I feel they would struggle against most vertical spinners as they did in 2019, which is kind of their big weakness right there. So it's gonna really depend on who Quantum draws this season as to like how will they do, but record wise, I'm gonna lean towards 2 and 2 or 1 and 3. I could maybe see Quantum making brackets, and I would love to see a deep Quantum run. But my concern of the fact that I think they're gonna struggle against like lots of vertical spinners, like what they did last season, I think that's gonna hold them back, unfortunately. So I'm gonna go with that, and we're gonna move on to another one. So okay, Ribot once again. Back with another that frog robot is back once again and looks for the most part it doesn't look very changed, basically like different, kind of like a little bit different color scheme wise, but overall the design is the same, and I'm predicting they probably got just the undercutter and the vertical spinner once again for this season. So okay, so yeah. But then one of the design changes I know Ribot did make, though, because I did have Ribot on the podcast earlier where we discussed some of that stuff, is basically one of the rule changes Battlebots made addressing for this season is they made a bunch of restrictions on voltage for this upcoming season. It is why Uppercut is not in it this season, and well, partially why Uppercut's not in it this season, and it affected Ribot because both those robots required on a huge amount of voltage to for the weapon wise and stuff like that, and that's something Ribot had to change. But David Jin mentioned that they addressed that, and definitely that frog should still be just as powerful as it was in previous seasons. And so as for prediction wise, I got some confidence that that frog will do well. I think I'm gonna predict 3-1 from Ribot because even though the wheels are exposed, which is probably the biggest concern I've got for Ribot, like David Jin has done a phenomenal job driving in these fights and keeping the pressure up on his opponents right there. And that's one of Ribot's biggest strengths right there, along with the fact that it's a modular robot. So yeah, I'm gonna predict 3-1 for Ribot. I'm gonna predict top 16, but then I know Pori's gonna be all up and saying that Ribot's gonna win the giant nut. I'd love to see Ribot take home the giant nut. I think Ribot has the potential to do it, as do several of the other robots I've talked about and soon will be talking about. So yeah, great to see Ribot back for another season. Let's move on. Ripperoni and basically, Ripperoni is one of the robots that I think looks the coolest and stuff like that. So, what makes Ripperoni interesting is basically, I'm gonna flip through. You'd see there are two differently sized wheels on this robot, basically, which is very interesting. So yeah, I think from what I've heard, there is some basically there's some common issue with vertical spinners that Ripperoni is addressing with that right there. And definitely if it works well, definitely could see Ripperoni doing well. Ripperoni brings me a lot of uppercut vibes right there, but then kind of back to the uppercut talk right there. Basically what I've heard from uppercut is that they're not in it this season, and sorry. Uh basically what I've heard it is basically Uppercut had to change up their weapon system because Ribot, basically they relied on a huge amount of voltage to spin up the weapon, and with the restrictions on voltage that Battlebots inflicted for this season, basically Uppercut had to change that. And from what I've heard, I think they needed to take the season off in order to fix that stuff. So I hope we get to see Uppercut in once again. But as for Ripperoni, so basically the team behind Ripperoni is members of three different teams: Uppercut, Valkyrie, and crap, who's the last one? P1. And they put together this robot and Star Child, who we'll be talking about and a little bit later. So as for Ripperoni, like very interesting right there. Worried about the exposed wheels, but if their driving is on point, I think Ripperoni has potential to do some serious damage, and I always love a good pizza, and I love the pizza-themed robot here. So, Ripperoni, because it is a new robot, I'm probably going to predict 2-2 with Ripperoni, but I hope they prove me wrong, though, because I'd love to see a deep run from Ripperoni, and definitely wish the best to them, and can't wait to see some of their fights because that's an awesome looking robot right there. I know this is another big name that this is another big robot that Pori is looking to that Pori is supporting for this season, and should be great getting to see them in the arena. Okay, Riptide. Okay, so Riptide coming off of a phenomenal rookie season, making the top 8 last season, and Riptide, I'm just going to state this right off the bat. We don't know a lot of the design changes for Riptide, but I think Riptide's going to go on a serious run. So the design based off of Lynx, designed by Calvin Eba, and yeah, beetle weights, and yeah, I think that's the weight class it's in. But based off of Lynx, a lighter robot designed right there, and yeah, right off the bat, I think Riptide is going to go on a deep run this year, as I mentioned already, and definitely a robot to watch out for. And as for record wise, I'm gonna go 3-1 or 4-0 this year, and then I'm gonna actually predict a top 4 run from Riptide this year. Because like Ethan Kurtz is a phenomenal driver right there. They got a great design and it worked great for them. If that robot works as well as it did in most of their fights, Riptide is gonna be tearing things apart this season. Next robot. Okay, Rotator. So Rotator back, and for the most part, looks the same. Meaning there's probably a lot of changes internal wise, and I believe they increased the gap between the spinner and the base after what happened in the glitch fight. But yeah, Rotator, another robot that I'm looking forward to, because Victor Soto does a great job utilizing the fact that on one side is a spinner, and then the other side has ground scraping forks there, and being able to use a lot of that to his advantage. And it's always been a robot that's been like so hard to prepare for fights. So as for Rotator, if Victor can drive as well as he has like in past seasons, which I predict he will, I think Rotator could go on a deep run this year. I think I'm going to predict 3-1 from Rotator, and I'm going to predict top 8 from it. So Rotator was definitely a really terrifying name, and definitely a robot a lot of people probably don't want to have to draw, just because like it's such a hard robot to prepare for, along with the fact that it's really powerful, basically. So yeah, I got a lot of confidence in Rotator for this season and looking forward to seeing it this upcoming season. Okay, Rusty. It looks like this is the year we're going to get to see the new Rusty. Yeah, because like there were signs that we would get to see it last year, but then that didn't end up happening. We unfortunately ended up seeing the old Rusty there. But we got the new one here, and like yeah, because like it definitely looks like it's going to be a more competitive design than the previous one was, but like and just as adorable as it was in the past. Like I absolutely love the Rusty Hex Bug. Like that thing is absolutely adorable, and it looks very similar to that. If my Hex Bugs are nearby, I'd go grab the Rusty Hex Bug that I've got. But so prediction wise, I'm not sure how effective like that new hammer is going to be and how well the new design is going to work. So I'm probably going to predict either 1-3 or 0-4. But hear me out on this. I think Rusty and Doomba are going to fight at some point in the season, whether it's qualifying round, bracket, or exhibition match. I think Rusty and Doomba are going to have a fight at some point, just because like they're two really adorable designs. Who wouldn't want to see a fight like that? So yeah, yeah, great stuff. Looking forward to seeing this new Rusty in action. So let's move on. Okay, Sawblaze. Sawblaze has always been a terror in the arena, and I suspect they're probably going to be a terror once again. Yeah, not sure what part's more dangerous about Sawblaze. That front that has done such a great job with just scooping up opponents so that way they could drop that hammer saw on them, or the hammer saw itself, which has done immense amounts of damage to not just their opponents but themselves too, because I know they had a bunch of pulley issues last season that made them really limit the times they wanted to strike with that hammer saw. So yeah, design changes for Sawblaze. Definitely the front looks a little bit different. I suspect they probably look to increase the durability of it. Looks like they got wheel guards this season, including the fact that they got Brazilian wheels this year too, which has been an upgrade that lots of robots have been more adapting to ever since Black Dragon brought them into the arena in 2019 during their rookie season. So as for Sawblaze, I think Sawblaze could go. I think we could see another Final Four run from Sawblaze. I'm gonna predict 3-1 from Sawblaze. I'm gonna predict Final Four again this year because I suspect Sawblaze has always been one of the scariest opponents and to take on. I feel and definitely is another one. Is another. Definitely is still one of the robots to really watch out for. Okay, Shatter. back once again after kind of a mess season last year. Because like they did get a few victories, such as the wins over let's see, yeah, such as the wins over Sub Zero, Blacksmith, and Pain Train. But then kind of fell apart when they took on Riptide and then Deep Six X. But not in that order exactly, because one of them was main competition, one of them was Golden Bolt. So, so yeah. So as for Shatter prediction wise, because like definitely looks like they have another hammer configuration for this season. Along just looking at what they have right there, along with the hammer they typically have been using in the Mary Special. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Shatter because like Shatter is another robot that I quickly became a fan of after their debut in 2019 because it's an awesome looking robot and all that stuff. So yeah, as for predictions for Shatter, I'm probably gonna predict. I do think they're gonna struggle with the field still because like that was an issue that held them back in like the Riptide fight, right? For example, and there are several opponents right there that could take advantage of that. But I'm still looking forward to seeing Shatter in the arena, and I hope we get to see Shatter versus Beta, which is a fight I've been wanting for ever since 2020 when they both partook that season. Maybe we'll get it this year, but yeah. And so Shatter, I'm gonna predict 2-2 from Shatter. I'm gonna predict they make bracket this year, and I hope we'll get to see it. I hope we'll get to see another deep run from Shatter because we did get to see them make top 8 in 2020. But as of right now, I think I'm probably going to predict top 32 or top 16. So, anyway, let's move on. Shred It Bro, and previously known as Pain Train the past 2 seasons, Evan Arias chose to make a heavyweight based off of his Beetleweight Shred It, which was put into the Beetleweight Hall of Fame. And basically my point being like it's so well known for its success as a Beetleweight and now being brought up to heavyweight. So yeah, and so as for Shred It Bro this year, prediction wise, I will admit that Pori, if you're watching this, I might make fun of you for Shred It Bro when we're in the VC basically. I might watch others make fun of you, but I think Shred It Bro has potential to go on a run this year. Because, like, the previous 2 seasons, we didn't see it even make bracket. I think they'll make bracket this year. Maybe make top 16. Maybe go on a dark horse run. Shred It Bro is one of the 3 robots that I've been looking at for predicting to be dark horse this year, along with Malice and Hijinks being the other 2 that I've been really looking at. So, yeah, I think Shredder Bro has potential to go on a deep run. I think I like the look and a lot of the design changes that Evan made for this robot. I think as long as it's working properly, I think Shredded Bro could definitely go on a deep run this year. So yeah. All right, let's move on. So Scorpios. Okay, so Scorpios, a couple configurations for this year, multiple saws, like for example the one we're seeing right there, which we hadn't seen since the Bloodsport fight, because apparently they were asked not to use that. They made a setup right there that would enable them to be able to use that thing. Because I think the big concern was arena wise, but I know they mentioned it in one of the builder blogs, and definitely that's something worth checking out. So yeah, so Scorpio's back with multiple configurations as well as that weapon right there. Because I know other weapons, I believe they still have the pickaxe right there that we saw in the Black Widow fight. Because I think they did have it with them last year, as well as multiple other spinners like the ones that we saw last season, and also Overkill's blade, which I really hope we get to see that in the battle box at least once this year. Part of the problem is there aren't a lot of robots that I feel Scorpios would use the Overkill blade against. Because, like, I feel the only ones we would see it used in would be Overhaul, if maybe they do a sword fight. Rusty, maybe Doomba, and, like, maybe Big Dill. But, my point being, I hope we get to see the Overkill blade at least once. But, in all seriousness, though, for prediction wise, if Scorpios can keep up the durability they had and Zach Lytle can continue driving as well as he has been the past few seasons, which I feel he probably will, I think Scorpios could have a really strong season coming, at least. Because, like, Scorpios has been very well known for either winning in great fashion or losing a very close fight. Because, like, that's exactly what happened in the Whiplash, the Yeti, the Whiplash and the Yeti fight, especially. So, yeah, prediction wise, I'd say either 2-2 or 3-1. I think they'll make brackets, and I'm gonna go first or second round for Scorpios. Fingers crossed we'll get Sawblaze and Scorpios though. It's a matchup that I know a lot of us have been wanting for a long time, including I know Zach and Diane have mentioned it themselves on their builder blocks that they want that matchup, and it'd be an incredible fight to see. I hope we get it this year. So let's move on. Slammo. So the big thing that notices me about Slammo is the fact that it looks better armored and look beefier. Meaning it looks like Craig Danby really put a lot of work into the defense and durability about Slammo, which would definitely help them because like that's what I felt costed them in most of their losses last season. So yeah, as for Slammo, I think they're another robot where like the competitive field just is a makes things just like a big disadvantage for Slammo right there. And it's why I'm probably gonna predict 1-3 from Slammo, unfortunately. But I hope we get to see a few suplexes out of that robot, and maybe even them prove me wrong and go on a deep run. Because I'd absolutely love to see it from this robot and all that fun stuff. Okay, let's move on. Star Child. So Star Child, I mentioned when we got to Ripperoni that they made that the teams behind like P1, Valkyrie, and Uppercut made two robots. One of them was Ripperoni. The second one is this one. Yeah, and so Ripperoni brings me a lot of like Gabriel vibes, kind of, because like it's got that vertical spinner right there. Very curious what that is. Looks like a demon or something right on the top of that robot, but regardless, so it brings me a lot of Gabriel vibes because like I want to say how it works is like not only is the vertical spinner spin and try to cause damage, but it'll try to swing that arm basically to try to hit the opponent like Gabriel does. That's kind of the vibes it brings me, but I'm not 100% sure because it's also possible they could just try to they could just keep the weapon kind of like on the ground practically and like let it spin up there and then take it into the opponent basically. I don't know for sure, but Star Child should be an interesting one to see brought into the arena. I'm gonna predict we see a Star Child in huge fight at some point. Get to see a battle between the big wheeled robots, if you get what I mean by that. And prediction wise, once again, it's a new design, and we don't know how much damage that spinner can do. So Star Child, I do worry about how much damage that spinner can do, and maybe even how vulnerable like that base could be to lots of the bigger spinners. Like I would say Uppercut if Uppercut was in this season, like Jackpot maybe. So yeah, I'm probably gonna predict a 1-3 or a 2-2 due to those concerns I've got. But I hope we get to see he Star Child do better. Please prove me wrong, absolutely. But regardless, though, Star Child should be able to give us should be able to give us several great fights. So let's move on. All right, Switchback. So Switchback coming back after a rookie season where they definitely showed a little bit of potential during parts of it at least, but I will flat out admit that new version of Switchback, that thing looks fierce for this year. I am very much looking forward to seeing Switchback in the arena once again. So yeah, as for prediction wise, I'm actually gonna go 3-1 for a Switchback for this season because, like I said, that thing looks fierce for this season, and hopefully Switchback addressed a lot of the drive concerns they had and lots of all the problems they had last season. I feel especially with like the drive system and maybe we can see Switchback go on a deep run because, like, I know Spin Doctors, who's been on the channel multiple times, he's a big Switchback person, and absolutely, I'm a big fan of Switchback as well as him. So yeah, once again, I'm gonna predict 3-1. Hopefully Switchback. Hopefully Switchback definitely improved upon the design they brought last year because I think it definitely showed some potential in a few of those fights from last season, and definitely could go on a deep run if lots of their opponents are not careful. Because like this thing's still like it's still a really unique design and a little bit tricky of an opponent to take on. So let's move on. Okay, now we have, after a while, the defending champion Tantrum. And this thing looks built up to be even tougher than what it was last season. So yeah, Tantrum coming back after winning the Giant Nut last season and making the top 4 of the Golden Bolt bracket. So as for Tantrum I'm expecting is Tantrum's probably going to have high hopes and a really difficult schedule for this upcoming season, but I think we're going to see another great run from Tantrum. So, okay, so yeah. So, one of the big strengths about Tantrum's always been their durability, and it looks even more durable than what it did last year, just from looking at it right here. And if they keep that durability up and continue to be able to strike with that weapon, doing a little bit of damage to their opponents, we could definitely see another deep run from Tantrum because Alex and Ginger have done a great job did a great job running Tantrum last season ever since that Final Four run. Well, especially since they won the Giant Nut that year. And I suspect we're going to see something like that again. I'm predicting record wise either a great 3-1 or a 4-0 record from Tantrum because Tantrum, they're definitely not going to get easy opponents this season, but definitely is a robot to watch out for still, and got a huge target on their back too, since they are going to be the defending champ. So yeah, I'm predicting we're going to see a lot of success from Tantrum this season. I think they'll go make another deep run in the bracket. So let's move on. Okay, Terror Tops. I think this is one of the last newcomers here. I don't know. I don't remember for sure. Terratops a little bit kind of like some Whiplash vibes right there. Vertical spinner and a lifter right there, but then a dinosaur type theme right there. That thing looks awesome right there. That I want to say right off the bat. Sorry. But yeah, back to what I was saying. That thing looks amazing right there, and I can't wait to see it in the battle box. Prediction wise, I don't think it's gonna do great because like lots of that armor right there. I'm not sure how well it's going to be able to hold up to lots of those attacks. That looks like something that could break pretty easily, at least, and that's going to be my big concern for it. But I hope they prove me wrong about that. Absolutely. So prediction wise, unfortunately, I'm probably going to go 1-3 for Terratops and probably not make bracket, but I hope we get to see them learn a lot about the design or prove me wrong or something like that. Always up for that as I usually am. So great stuff. Terratops looks great, and I can't wait to see it in the battle box because I bet that thing will be exciting. Nope, forget that. We got another rookie, Triton. So we won't be seeing Deep Six back for reasons they mentioned on social media, unfortunately, which is unfortunate because Deep Six was another robot that made a serious statement for itself in the Golden Bolt series last year, with several of the big names they took out, and the fact that they put up such a great fight against Ribot during that. So they're back with so part of the team's back with Triton, basically kind of like a horizontal version of Deep Six, kind of, and we get to see stacked wheels right there, which should be interesting for them. I think Fusion has that design and thing, if I remember correctly. And so, record wise, I think Triton could do a serious amount of damage if the weapon works and everything. But I am concerned because the arena does not favor Triton right there. I'm predicting probably either a 2-2 or a 3-1 record because I think Triton is going to absolutely lay waste to a couple opponents this season. But then going up against some of the big names and some of the big box rush tanky robots, I think Triton could really struggle against some of those robots. But I think Triton will have a decent rookie season. I absolutely could see Triton making bracket. But I think I'd probably say first or second round most right there. But who knows? So it's a new robot. So we'll find out. We'll find out after its first two fights. Like what are the big strengths about it? What are some of the big flaws with it? Okay, moving on. Valkyrie, and as you can see, that's not Leanne Cushing right there. So Leanne passed on the reins to yeah, basically, Leanne passed on the reins to Lucy of Sawblaze, basically, who will be running Valkyrie. And I would say I love that color scheme that Valkyrie has for this upcoming season. So hopefully Valkyrie addressed because like they continued to have some weapon problems for last season, but when that weapon is working, that thing is a monster there. And definitely, if they can have that weapon working, Valkyrie could definitely make a deep run this upcoming season. So, record wise, let's see. Record wise, I think I'm going to say 2-2 or 3-1 this season because I am worried about how well they'll be able to fare against lots of the big box rushing opponents, and like the fact that the arena just doesn't favor them as much. So yeah. Regardless though, I hope we'll get to see Valkyrie do as great as it has in the previous few seasons, and I'm looking forward to seeing them in the arena once again. So, and even under a new name, I think they'll do great. So, looking forward to seeing such a big name back again. Okay, Whiplash. So, Whiplash basically coming back for this season. Yeah, for the most part, looks the same at least. Lifter, vertical spinner. Looks like a longer fork, kind of. I don't know if maybe that's a configuration or purposely set up or something like that. But regardless, though, Whiplash looks great once again and definitely behind the wheels of one of the best drivers in the sport. So, yeah. So prediction wise, I hope we'll get to see this vertical spinner a little more from Whiplash for this year because I think that's definitely what held them back in some of their fights. Just like the inability to do damage and the fact they were using the fact they were using the lifter to control the fight, which is an okay strategy, absolutely. Because I do think most of Whiplash's fights were won because Whiplash has controlled the fight with the lifter, which I think is one of the reasons why they went that route last season for most of their fights. But then, like, the Cobalt fight and maybe even the Witch Doctor fight, too, like, not being able to do damage, like, I felt kind of hurt them a little bit. And, yeah, hopefully we'll get to see the vertical spinner. I think Matty Vasquez is definitely going to lead Whiplash to victory, I feel. I'm going to predict 3-1, and I could see Whiplash absolutely going on a big giant nut run this season because I think Whiplash will do great once again and can't wait to see them in the arena again. Okay, last one, and it's Witch Doctor. So, Witch Doctor looking like they're going to stick with the single tooth vertical spinner, and they've hinted at a lot of design changes internal wise. So, yeah, Witch Doctor back for another season here. So after their runner-up season in both the main competition and the Golden Bolt bracket. So yeah, prediction-wise, I think Witch Doctor will have another strong season once again. I think I'm going to go 3-1 from Witch Doctor, and then I'm going to predict. I'll probably go top 16 or top 8 at least. But I absolutely could see Witch Doctor making another run towards the giant nut because that robot's definitely got the potential. The vertical disc spinner is so powerful, just as powerful as it's been in past season. Mike lately does a great job driving it, and the reliability has been sufficiently improved from what it was in past seasons. So, yeah, if all that stuff is in perfect sync, Witch Doctor is set up pretty well to make a deep run. But we'll have to see, because like Witch Doctor has a lot of strong competition for this season, and definitely if they're not careful, lots of the robots could possibly steal that reign from Witch Doctor. But yeah. Yeah, and so that's the last one here. So yeah, thanks for watching this video here. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe button. There are plans to do podcasts throughout this season once again. Basically, it won't just be me here, the squad will be here, because the squad will be here, and then hopefully we'll be doing more builder interviews once again, because like ever since I started doing builder interviews in the middle of last season, those have been the most fun podcasts that I've ever done. So, of course, I'm going to want to do more because if they're fun, I got to do more. So, yeah, once again, thanks for watching this video, and I'll leave a link to the website here in the description if you like to check out some of this stuff for yourself. So, once again, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.